my 1L year, I came into law school and did the whole study, 24/7, get your really good group of friends together to form a study group that meets like on a very regular basis with a regimented schedule, and I guess kind of like what the gunners would call, their typical routine. And I did that for a semester. And when I came out of the process, I wound up with a bunch of B pluses, which isn't terrible, but for me, having made straight A's until I got to law school was quite upsetting, especially considering that I'd always made straight A's and never studied, and then I busted butt to study so hard, and I got all these B pluses, and it didn't make sense to me. It was like I'd done the math equation wrong or something, like how, time plus effort equals A's, and it didn't work out that way. So the second semester, I kind of backslid a bit, and I definitely didn't do the study hard. I worked out a lot, and kind of poured a lot of my personal resources into getting physically healthy, because I'd also let my health slide, and that I was studying so much first semester. I put on like 10 or 15 pounds, and I just wasn't really paying attention to what I was eating or doing, and so I got that in order second semester. And then over the summer after my first year, I kind of reflected on it, and I was like, I guess my personal life just kind of got turned upside down, and it wasn't very healthy, and I wasn't balancing things well, and I was like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Especially considering when I didn't study as hard second semester, I still ended up making the exact same grades. So I was like, okay, well that says a lot to me about the amount of effort you put in and what you get out of it. I felt like I was stuck at a grade point, which was fine, but especially since I didn't really look at it as being stuck there, I was just like, okay, well this means I have extra time, and what can I do with it? And when I was in undergrad, I had done a lot of extracurricular work and charity events and things like that, and so I knew that those had made me really happy. And my 1L year, I was not very happy because I'd been focusing on myself in the sense that I'd been studying all semester for grades that were just for me. And the second semester, I was focusing on myself in the sense that I was on a treadmill and, counting calories to get back to a healthy weight, and that was just for me. And that wasn't satisfying. So realizing between the two semesters that I could get the same grades, have all this time left over, but that I needed to do something more satisfying with the time that I had left over, I decided to channel all of that into doing things for the student body at the law school. Being that VSHWA hadn't developed yet, because I hadn't developed it yet for my second year, that's why I got into the social chair position, because I was like, okay, well I know parties make people happy, and that's a lot of fun, and this will be a good way for me to use my extra time, so I'm not stressing about not studying, because it's not like studying really got me that much farther than not studying, so this will give me something to do with that time, and I'll be making my classmates happy, and I'll be happy, and I like event planning anyway, so this is great. And then, but as I got into the social chair position, realizing the substance abuse issues with law school, and kind of realizing it before the year started, because that's when I was getting all my briefings about this is what you're going to have to do, and if you encounter this type of circumstance at one of the events that you have, this is your liability, and this is how you need to communicate it to the school so that you make sure you don't get in trouble with social chair, and all these things that started to hit me that like, okay, well, planning parties is great and fun, but I think that the student body needs something a little more than that to mitigate what's going on and to be an outlet. And so that's how VSHWA developed. And as far as me balancing my time, when I got down to time pressures for myself, I pretty much just always felt like, well, is it more important that I spend these 5 minutes or these 48 hours or whatever the time frame was on myself making a grade that only I will see, and maybe some employers, or is it more important that I get together this speaker or get together this panel or put together this week-long series of events that, even if it only reaches 2 students, that's 2 students who feel better about it, and I'll feel just as rewarded because I know I did something good for someone else. And that I think that actually speaks to a bigger issue in the legal community that might be part of why we're all so upset here, is that we go through law school focusing on ourselves and then have trouble finding outlets on how we can help other people, which is what's really much more rewarding than getting good grades or sitting in a cubicle in a library for 48 hours straight or whatever the circumstances might be. I think the rewards of doing all this work have come incrementally along the way, whether it be students that have approached me after a certain event or after the dry week petition or whatever, saying that this particular means has gotten through to them and let them know that maybe I do need to be more introspective during the law school process and check my personal level of stress. And not only check it, but that I can check it and overcome it in a much healthier way than I have been. Another really rewarding experience was that a couple weeks ago, we sat down, the current board and then a few first-year students who wanted to come in and take on leadership positions. We sat down, and it was really satisfying or rather gratifying. It was really gratifying to be surrounded by a group of about 10 students who were really amped about getting programming underway that would make law school less stressful and the legal profession as a whole less stressful. And not just for themselves, but for their classmates. And that we're really amped about disseminating this message to other schools so that whenever they go into the legal profession with these other graduates, they can be surrounded by peers that have a similar outlook on work-life balance and what work means relative to the rest of your life. So next year, obviously I'll no longer be in law school, but I'm very fortunate in that I've gotten accepted to a program here at Vanderbilt's business school. So I'll be literally 20 yards away from the law school, and I've been in the process of passing the Vichwa baton to the next year's officers, and they have a full slate of things that they're going to do, and one of them is developing a conference that we invite 20 to 40 law schools to send representatives to this conference and encourage them to develop similar chapters at their school, so like LSHWA chapters, if you will, for Law Student Health and Wellness Association, generally speaking, and basically to go back to their law schools and perpetuate a similar program that provides tools to students to mitigate and manage stress in a healthier way. I'll be working with the Vichwa chapter here on making sure that that conference actually happens and that we get the proper speakers in and really good motivational speakers and everything, and people in the profession that can speak to ways in which they've been able to translate stress mitigation in law school into the actual profession. Obviously, since I'll be helping plan this conference and then just generally speaking, of course, I welcome anyone to contact me about any of these ideas, especially if they'd like to start a similar chapter at their law school, and kind of encourage similar programming wherever they're at. I'll be here at Vanderbilt. People can contact me at my email, which is meredith.blount, BLOUNT, at gmail.com. If somebody ran into me on the street and wanted to know about getting into law school and what to expect along the way, I'd probably probe a bit and ask what type of law they want to go into, because I have noticed there's a bit of a difference between litigation lawyers and transactional lawyers, and make sure that they're really interested in law school and going into the legal profession, or whether they're using it as a means to go into possibly a more political profession or something like that. Because I think the slant with which you enter law school dictates a lot of how it's going to go, and also whether or not it's actually that necessary. Because I would probably not recommend jumping through the hoops of law school if you didn't really need it, like to get into the bar. But if they really wanted to go to law school, I would probably suggest that they spend the summer before at very least, not to sound silly, but kind of getting in touch with who they are, really taking note of what makes them happy and what makes them tick as a person, so that when they get to law school and study time starts to infringe upon those things, they don't find themselves in a place where they can't remember who they were before they entered law school. Because it's hard to pick back up on the things that make you happy and mitigate stress if you don't even remember what they are.